Every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. So welcome to the John Schultz podcast. I'm now on episode 7. No, actually, this is episode 10. So this is getting very exciting. I've been loving meeting all these new wonderful people and hearing their stories. I find for myself learning about different industries and what's going on in the world gives me a better perspective. And we have someone today that I think is going to be a tremendous asset for the podcast and for the people who listen, Amber Allen. And welcome, Amber. Thanks for coming on. She's the founder and CEO of AA Labs, which brings together experiential marketing and immersive technologies, which today obviously is a huge thing everyone's focused on. And she recently launched AA Platform, a proprietary metaverse platform where people chat, learn, and play and optimize sales. And for me, metaverse seems like an intangible thing right now. This actually, for businesses, gives that, I think, focus on how we can actually apply it to real world. A self-described gamer girl at heart, which I love. Games are fun. So thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. It's terrific having you.
Yeah.
So let's get sort of back to your history a little bit.
Sure.
You were the global director of Riot Games. You did something with Warner Brothers, actually the Batman launch. You're in marketing at Walt Disney. Like, how did you, understand what direction to go in your career when you first started out? Obviously, it's event driven, but what got you there?
Yeah, I'm from a small town in East Texas. So the ideas of growing up, my daddy was a Baptist preacher. So it was, you could be a teacher, a nurse, or a mama. So it definitely wasn't the career path I had at first thought, but I had the opportunity to have Disney as my client. I was a merchandiser during college. And that's actually how I got to meet some of the executives at Disney. They saw my work. People kept having babies, so I kept getting to take over different territories. And so I was covering Texas and Pittsburgh and ended up running the program. And Disney hired me and moved me to LA. And I moved out to LA to work with Disney. And so that's kind of how I started down this path. But it really wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be in the event space or I'm going to be in marketing space. It was more of, I just always kind of said yes to like, what's that next adventure or what's the thing I enjoy doing? And I just didn't work inside of a box of what my job was.
So you kept an open mind and just knew you were learning, right? And it got you the next thing and the next thing. And talk a little about this Riot Games, this 10,000 person esports Super Bowl. I mean, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, so I am a gamer girl, as you said, and I grew up, me and my daddy would play like Mario Brothers and Zelda, and I loved the competition, but I also loved collaborating, like getting to play and conquer and things with my dad and my friends playing video games. So when I was at Warner Brothers, as you mentioned, I was going to play and help launch Mortal Kombat and Batman Arkham, Lego. And Riot Games came to me and recruited me and asked me if I would help them create what would be the next sport. And it was esports. And so I was a part of a very small team at that time. They got to executive produce, and we were trying to decide, to your point of the 10,000 person, should we make it an arena event? Should it be like local LAN areas, like where kids bring their computers and 300 computers play together and play like overnights? And we ended up doing the first ever live arena event was season 2. I was executive producer of the arena event, and we did it at Galen. And we had like 7,860, something like that, kids, and we had almost 1 million people watch it online. But what was really fascinating is it really showed me that whole ecosystem, which is where we're going in now with Metaverse and Web3. It really, 10 years ago, this was, you kind of saw how if you had the game and you had the community that played on the game, at that time it was 70 million kids. every day, logged in and played this game. It's way higher now. And you watch the way that they got to watch the experience and the sport, but they didn't watch it like we do basketball and stuff. They watched this to be like, how do I get better playing that character? What happens when I push QWER all at the same time and I level up that? And what we found is the game, the way you watch the game and how the pros play those skins, people would actually buy them later going, okay, that's how you play that skin. I want that character. And we saw a massive lift in sales over that next month. And that's when we knew, hey, this is a real way to have that whole ecosystem. And that's where
And how did the idea generate, right? Because it was so new. And, obviously today we're all more focused on knowing that the gamer industry, and we're going to talk about that, is the metaverse, right? It's just another game. But how did they figure out, or how did you guys figure out from physical to digital, how that would work?
Well, I mean, what's interesting is we weren't the first one doing it, which is first one to the US. The Korea was really ahead of us and has always been with esports. And so we watched how Korea and China were doing it. And Korea was doing the huge arena events. China was doing more of the smaller 100 people in a room. And what we saw was the energy of the crowds, of it really becoming, these are the athletes that they look at. And that was more of the Korean, like in the Korean model, where the shoutcasters were the huge celebrities in China because they had just these big personalities. And so that was one of the ways of like looking at what worked and what we felt would work, localizing to the US and to Europe and to, globally for that brand was really important.
It's amazing. I mean, and now they're doing these metaverse events, right? That's not physical, but just this whole physical digital experience and bringing it out to physical, then bringing it back into digital is just, it's fascinating. What's going on.
I like to call it phygital.
Phygital. Wow.
Phygital. So we have a phygital world, a phygital
Did you trademark that name? I mean, come on. You can't let that one get away. That's too good. That's too good. Phygital.com. I like that already. So obviously you followed your passion, and what would you say, the audience likes to hear the stories behind the stories. So what would you say was your breakthrough moment in like finding, okay, so you were open to jobs, you did what you did. What did you have to break through to get to the next level, to actually feel like you could start your own thing, which you launched AA Labs in 2013. How did you get there, and what were some of the issues you had to deal with to get there?
You know what's interesting is I've met many entrepreneurs and you and I have conversations like that just always knew they wanted to do that. Honey, I was a corporate kid. Like I thought it was so cool to work for Disney and Warner and these Reebok. But what I found was after the arena events that we had done in that ecosystem, that this was a hole in the market, that there was going to be a massive need for this for brands. And that if the world was gamers, in the innovating, I like to say the gaming tech world, the very early adoption of technology, right? We know that. But so I was like, there's a hole here. There needs to be something that lets us as a brand be able to have direct access to our community. And our community has that human connection and loyalty, that we do have loyalty. It's just we have loyalty to brands that teach us, right? Which is that same model. And then also that we can communicate back and forth, kind of like that crowdfunding style model. And I was like, there's not something like this right now for the business side. So that's what I set off to do. And so I didn't start it to be like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I just saw a hole. And I was like, I want to do this. But I have to be honest, like 2 months in, you're talking about a story behind the story. Like we launched in June. My first event was for the president of Warner Brothers at the time, home video, Mark Horak. And he brought us in to run the tech conference. But they also had a charity component, which I love. And this charity component was helping with MS. And what was so cool is we were showing all the new technology. Well, one of the technology at the time was Google Glasses. And so I got to meet the teams and all that. And then they contacted me and said, hey, would you actually be interested in interviewing for this role? So I was kind of one foot in, just me, running this business and seeing this hole, and then started interviewing with Google and got to the final round. And I realized that there would always be another corporate company that I would find fascinating. But if I didn't do this now, then I would never do it. And that was such a lesson for me of like, for the next 9 years, I've always looked at, if I am 1 foot in on something, I will never conquer it. I have to just dive into that deep end, you know?
So you made the transfer, which is awesome. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's,
And right
obvious.
after that, about 6 months later, I had my first employee. And so started hiring employees and really scaling up with the company. And I was bootstrapped. So I bootstrapped the company and we've been profitable since day one.
That's great. That's not like most, technology startups, obviously, but you're really more the the real world events and how did you get through COVID? I mean, it's interesting to me. You have this new platform for the metaverse, which is great, which I think everything got amplified in a
100%.
big way on a lot of the things we're all working on, right? Like the ones that were going to be that actually had a real market, really, accelerated, and the ones that obviously didn't. But so how did you get through COVID being more or less an event company, right?
Yeah, that's what was interesting. So I didn't start out as like, oh, I'm going to just do events. I wanted to do what we did at Riot, where the live events and the digital collided and worked together because you needed both audiences, right? And so we would bring companies like Discord to market, HTC Vive, Magic Leap, Reddit. And so that is how, and then we would build technology with engineers in-house around these companies to showcase their tech and their product when we brought them to market. So back in 2017, we actually had Unreal as our client, the Unreal gaming engine. So we built our first digital world back in 2017. It's on YouTube on the AA Labs channel, and where you could fly through, and it was a live event, and then it had the digital component. But John, the technology wasn't there. And then in 2020, when the world closed down for South by, exactly what you're talking about, we had 4 massive projects that were supposed to be at South by. Those closed down. The very next month in April, we were able, because Unity was our client, we were able to build our own custom digital world for Alienware. 1 month later, we had thousands of people come and stream, and we live streamed for 14 hours all over the world, and people would come in and watch it. And we're like, you know what? This is where we're going to focus our time. We were already doing augmented reality. We had created the app, Friends, the TV show, when it hit 25 years. We were a part of the strategy team. So that app had almost 1 million downloads. That was my team that built that. So we'd always built tech, but now it was the time. It's like you said, COVID didn't just make the adaptability happen. It made where we had depended on virtual. And so now the leveling field had gotten us to where people now are more comfortable online. Then you can build and play it.
Right. Also, because even I'm like, how did you get these? I mean, how did you get these? I mean, you're a company that's been around for a while, but you're dealing with large corporations, and obviously, it's hard to get that business. Like, how did you break through to actually be able to? Because most people look at like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to have a chance to work for a Disney or all the different companies that you're working with.
Yeah, I can promise you that the team that I have, every single one of my employees could work at Disney because they have that same kind of professionalism, but they also are scrappy, right? And that's one of the things we look at here. And so to your question, I have found that as long as we hold ourselves accountable to look and act just like a company that would work with an Apple or a Disney or a Warner Brothers, and the quality of work that we produce is the quality they expect. I remember I was 15 years inside a corporate. I know you can't use Mickey Mouse on top of one of your inside of a website. It's like understanding the rules and the professionalism that is expected. But yeah, I mean, we've got 45 master service agreements with the Fortune 500 companies. And, we've been doing everything from every client I mentioned to IBM. So it's, and now even more so, like we used to really focus in gaming, the entertainment world, technology, bringing Alienware or Razer, Intel, these companies to market. But now with this product that we have, it's a platform. And we were talking about this earlier. It's a platform that allows the brands to actually go in and play with it. And let me tell you, if you do not create, and I learned this with bringing some of these big companies to market here at this AA, is like if you don't bring something to market that they can play with and interact and learn on, then they're never going to actually buy the product or any of these things. We're talking about a space that is so new, in this metaverse is used and thrown around as VR headsets, AR headsets. We're just a website. We're a 3D website. right? And so to your point, that's how I feel the adoption happens at these bigger companies, is because we expect the same kind of professionalism and polish that they expect in their companies, but also we have a product that allows them to utilize their teams to be the creatives and build on top of, right?
And it sounds like you made it, simple. You simplified.
Drag and drop.
I think the scary part, which is this is all so new. If you're a corporation and responsible for this vertical, and you really don't understand it, because I don't think anyone really fully understands it. We don't really know where this is all going.
Exactly.
Back when you did the gaming, I get that completely, right? But in business, where we're all struggling to see how are we going to be relevant, it seems that you made it more simple. And I think the lesson I've learned is the simpler you make it for anyone, the better they'll react to you. And because if someone doesn't understand, they don't want to look like they don't understand and feel stupid about what you're trying to show them the way on. And they get, if they're going to make a step, it's hard. So what would you think being, because you're always in a new thing, right? Like you're in a new creative area at all times, right? From when you did that first event. It's not like you go into things that have happened where you actually have a track record or something to fall back on to say, well, that's how they did it before. So what would you say, knowing that, you've done a lot of that, is your core strength as a person to actually always go out and feel uncertain about how it's going to go because it's always new?
Curiosity.
Okay.
Curiosity is at the core of everything I do. And then I probably follow that up with play. But
okay.
Curiosity to me, I say this quote a lot. It's like true curiosity is looking under a rock just to see what's under the rock. Curiosity is not looking under the rock to look for gold, right? And so you'll always be disappointed if you're looking for that gold. If you're just looking to learn and know how to how does that rabbit hole work? And also be okay with, I love working with people that understand, and myself included, that's like, I don't know something. Like you just said, anybody that says they know everything about the metaverse is lying to you. Because that would be like 20 years ago with the internet, us realizing that we're going to be literally living on the internet practically, right? With shopping and everything else. So this ecosystem is what I call what we're doing right now. Web 2 is the networking. Web 3 is the ecosystem. And so for me, it's like learning and playing and being okay with failure. That's probably the second piece of that, is like, I'm going to fail. My team is going to fail. But if we learn from that, it wasn't a failure because it got us a lot farther.
And how many times do you feel you're in that position? I mean, because right now,
every day count.
Okay, no, because if you listen to your story and what you got going on and who you signed up, it looks like it's a dream. It's a dream story, but we all know that those things it's not so easy, right? So
yeah. I mean, I think mistakes are made. I think that's one of the things that scares me a little bit about just our culture in general in life, is right now people don't allow people to fail. If they fail, they get canceled. And I think for me, we allow it in our entrepreneurs, and that is the only way to keep learning, right? And so your thing of how many times I invested $3 million into a 3D digital world. That digital world you talked about, trademarked that baby, it's on websites. And I got to tell you, it was too early. My college kids spent 36 to 42 minutes in it. My C-level spent 3 minutes. Who's paying the bills? My executives. They have to be able to understand this product, interact in it. So killing that baby last year and going, all right, we're going to make it a 2D, 3D. If 24 million people signed on to one of the events that we did in August of 2020, 95% was mobile. That digital world I told you about was built on Unity. It doesn't work on mobile WebGL. So I had to go out there, get a native gaming engine that was mobile first, rebuild a product, build the platform starting last May. And that's what we were able to launch this year. And now, to your point, that's what we learned is our clients, like the CMO of Dell's and stuff, helped us say, no, this is what we need. This is what the data is saying. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned as an entrepreneur is don't fall in love with your baby. I'm sure you see it too, right? It's like you have to.
I think that's paramount. Because we're always wrong till we're right.
Yeah.
And you drop the expectation, and it's just like in anything, in any game you play, you try different moves on the chessboard or whatever game you're playing it because of all the sort of obstacles you have to get through. That's what makes the game fun. So to me, that applies to business. If you turn that mindset into the right thing will happen when it's supposed to, but like the fun part is doing all that and not expecting it to be perfect. And that's how you actually, you know, learn your best lessons. And it sounds like that's what you had to go through with Phygital. And but what's interesting, you're so used to this because like everything you do is new. It's like, it hasn't been really invented completely yet, right? You're not going into a crowded market space where everyone already is and doing something a little bit different that maybe fixes it a little bit. I mean, yours is the whole new experience.
Yeah, and someone once told me, and boy, I did not understand it then, but I do now 3 years later from this comment. It's being able to look at something, not realizing how early to market you might be has been very important. Because what I just like, oh, that's easy. I love that. I understand this, or my team, right? I'll call it my little sister who still lives in East Texas. She's brilliant, but she doesn't do a lot of technology and she's not around it much. Her and her husband share a computer, you know? And so I'll call her up and go, will you please just try this and tell me what makes sense and what doesn't? And she'll be like, oh, I don't know why you're doing this. I understand this. I don't like that. It scares me. Right. And so being able to have that pulse of how we grew up and, you know, that adaptability is super important because I'm building the bridge product. Other people can go build that product that everybody's talking about in 10 to 20 years. If we don't get people to step 3 and step 4, you'll never get there. We got to get on products right now that they understand in this digital world and that they can learn from and have a result. I do not need something that's just another brand awareness. We as a business owners need something, every single brand out there needs sales. And for us not to have sales on these metaverse doesn't even make sense. We're past that brand awareness time. I should have an ecosystem of my brand awareness, my sales of it in the community, hearing from them, and they tell me what they like. All of that is possible in this right now.
And you're basically saying nothing's perfect until it is. It's just, that you literally have to not be afraid to put yourself out there with the product that you have, knowing you're going to get feedback. And that's what makes the product actually work in the long run anyway. And with startups, it's interesting. Everyone that I'm involved in, it really never ended up being what it started out to be. It always pivoted and morphed and moved. And, you know, that's what made it fun, but that's also what made it gut wrenching. Cause you know, there's nights you go back home, you're like, oh my God, like, you know, you feel like you're starting over. Like, it sounds like that's what you went through.
Oh yeah. Sell the house, refinance an office. Oh yeah. Done it all.
So you talk a lot about teams, and I love that because you're like a type of person that knows that's the magic. And like you need a lot of different perspectives to actually make something really happen. And so what, you know, and you like building community. So what do you think are some best practices because I think people is almost harder than the product.
Oh yeah.
Because you got to get buy-in, belief.
Yeah.
People have to like feel.
And
so what are some of your best practices?
Yeah, I've failed in that before. You know, I in the past, it's kind of been, and I'm an analogy metaphor kind of girl. So, but like many times I would wait to hire that right role. And it'd be like I was in the middle of that ocean drowning. And let me tell you, anybody that came in was the perfect hire because that was a raft. And learning how to get in front of that and hire the right person before you get to that moment has been life-changing for this company. I was telling my team, we do these Monday weekly calls and we're doing our platform and having all these fun ways of brainstorming in it. And it was interesting as I was telling the team, I don't know if there's ever been a moment that I could say what I can say right now is every single person in my team needs to be in this team. And that's powerful. Because there's been a time where like, well, that person's doing 50% and somebody else is doing 150%. And that's not right, but I need the body there. And so right now, really getting to that point where those A players are hiring their A players and they see that they accelerate. We do sprints in our engineering department and we're 49% above what our sprints think we're going to be at. So that's huge in our numbers. So I think the biggest part though is we say over here, we're a team and then we're a family. So first we're a team and I expect the team and they expect each other to hold their balls and spread them and help each other and work, but they hold their own roles. And then you need to borrow the company truck, or your family, someone had his mom pass away, we fly them out there, like in the family. But I think that's super important, because if you just say their family, then, well, somebody didn't show up to work or slacking. I'm too small, and my people work way too hard for me to allow that.
And listen, to get the clients you have, there's some magic sauce, because I get that you've been in it for a while, and but like, it's not easy getting chosen from all the other larger sort of entities out there. But I have a question for this. Is it because this is so new? Like, and that's the other thing I think entrepreneurs and people starting new things understand, but most people never get to feel it, is like, when it's even playing field, because of what you're doing is so new. Do you feel there's not as much competition, or they're not worried about making as much of a mistake? Like,
yeah.
How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, it's interesting. I will tell you, I've had these conversations. It scares me to death a little bit that there isn't that much competition, because what I am seeing out there is going to waste clients' money. And I already know that it happens with a 3D world. I already know that if they only built an avatar, they spend 30 minutes on the avatar and only 5 minutes in the space, right? So that's why we don't have avatars. We do the videos, right? Like, the data has proven this stuff. And what scares me is that we're not going to have enough people out there that do it correctly. And we're going to end up with 6 years ago, how virtual reality was. Where or 12 years ago, we'd spend so much money on it. We didn't see the return on it, and it gets taken away. And I promise you, when this is done right, it's amazing. Like, it is exactly what we have in the game world. You have an exact communication with your consumer, your community, right? They're not even a consumer, they're your community, because they're helping you pick. Here's 6 choices digitally. I love this product. 3 million people click on that button. We're going to make that. Wait a minute. You just made a product that I got to pick and say, I can promise you I'll be your biggest ambassador, because I love it. It's my micro community inside of my community, right? For brands and for charities or whatever. So what scares me to death is not that the competition isn't there. It's that people will spend too much money on their brand with a closed ecosystem. We are living in an open ecosystem world. We are living in a system that if you come, for example, on my platform, you can actually click out to your website. You can have your shop inside of my window, and you didn't have to spend any more money. You can pull YouTube. YouTube's our client. You can pull YouTube in. And when you, as an influencer or anybody else, clicks on that little TV in that metaverse, you got your impressions back on YouTube. See, you add to the value of what a business owner and a brand has done. That is success. My competition right now is what you said earlier, fear. If I do not understand it and I don't want to look dumb, I'm not going to tell them what doesn't make sense. Someone told me yesterday, and I love them for it. She's like, yeah, you say it's $2,500 a month in licensing, but is it going to spend $20,000 just to create the custom world? And I go, no, that's only like $500. But I never even thought to tell people that, because it's so easy it's like Instagram, drag and drop, backdrop. So Jonathan, honestly, it's again, going back to that, how do you simplify in any, not even just my tech, just in any new tech, how do you simplify it so much that it doesn't look scary to someone? Because not everyone is where it's okay saying, I don't know that, teach me. And I wish people were more that way, because we grow so much faster.
So would you consider that what do you consider is your most significant strength? And like, where does that come from, as far as really literally being in something that's always new, always having to simplify and explain? Like you said, you're selling against fear. I mean, that's like an unbelievable hard thing to do. So where do you feel your most significant strength is?
I honestly believe it's that part of just being curious and asking people, like, how does this work? And hoping that I think, one of my biggest heroes, and I've never met him, but is Michio Kaku. And I love reading his books, and I love how he can take quantum physics and simplify it so much that I understand it, right? And that is one of the things I strive for every day, is like figuring out a way to make something not seem scary and simple enough that it meets their basic needs for a brand or for anything, right? And so then if they can understand that, I genuinely don't look at, it's funny, you said clients, and I kind of cringe, because I genuinely don't look at anybody that I talk to as a client. I look at them as a partner, because my gosh, if they understand it, they get to build such cool things on this. And I got to be a small piece of that with our platform. That, like my friend is doing one, the kindness campaign, and it's a whole entire children's curriculum against bullying and empathy. And she's in 60 schools now because she built her curriculum that she built, but set it on my platform. And like, I just don't think there's anything better than that.
No, it's interesting. Like with investing, like listening to Warren Buffett, like I so focus and try to find the people that make everything simple. Because it's like once you go down a discussion where it gets complicated, most people sort of shut it out or don't like feel they have the time to really get involved. And so I always find like it's interesting, they're out there, they just make things so simple
because they really understand it. That's what I want.
Yeah, it's great. So you've coined this term Generation Infinity.
Well, my friend, actually, a friend of mine in LA, who's a futurist.
Oh, really?
Okay. And I use that. I love it. And she's like, use it all you want.
So what does that mean? And why did
I loved it? Her name is Julie. And what I loved about it is it was all about, so many times I hear someone go, oh, I'm a Luddite in tech. While, by the way, they have a computer in front of them, an iPhone and an iPad. I'm not making this up. They have tech all around them, and they're saying they're a Luddite. Or they'll hear, well, my generation didn't grow up with that. That's the millennials. They know that stuff. But then they're the ones that are always curious. And so I call one of my advisors, who I just think is brilliant, Tom Meredith, helped start Dell, and he was at Motorola and so many cool places. And he's a perfect example of something that's a generational infinity. He's always learning, always growing. Okay to say, don't know what that means, please tell me. And so I loved when I heard the generational infinity, because I think if we stop coining ourselves in that naming nomenclature of I can't do that, I'm a Luddite, we'll remove our own barriers of, if I stop saying that it's like we do it with diets all the time, don't we? Like, I'm on a diet, I gotta try to lose 5 pounds. But if I stop saying I'm on a diet and just don't eat the sweets, I'll lose 5 pounds. But you tell me I'm on a diet, and honey, I'm gonna crave those cookies like crazy. I think it's the same way for tech. It's that world. Stop saying that you don't understand it. Anybody that's done a Zoom now has gone 5 years ahead, right? So we do, and that's what I love about that coin.
Yeah, like for me, when like it motivates me, like when I'm called whatever generation we're all in, it motivates me to want to be in another one. So, but not everybody's like that. They feel sort of stuck in old times, and it's not true. It's the farthest thing from being true. So with all that, how do you even make time for yourself? I mean, with all this going on, how do you make time for yourself? And do you feel that's necessary to actually be and do what you want?
I didn't know you asked that, but I love that question, because 4 years in, I had moved from San Francisco to Austin. We were blowing up at the company in a good way. And I started getting burned out. And I gotta tell you, I had never been burned out in my life. I just loved what I did all through my career. And I had a brilliant career coach. And she was like, she goes, Amber, what do you do for fun? And I said, are you kidding? I'm building technology. I'm getting to work with all these great brands. And she goes, but what do you do for play? And I just started bawling, because I realized I love play. Like you're looking at a girl who's got an arcade room in her house now.
You're a gamer. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Right?
Like, how do you keep it going and keep it
like I used to have a motorcycle, just because I loved to like skydive. I stopped all that when I started the company. But so what I ended up doing during COVID, when it was like we were rebuilding and building this SaaS company and just really skyrocketing, I rebuilt a 1966 Bronco with a guy that I hired, and he's been building it with me. And it's been so much fun. And it's just another form of creating through play. And I love that side of getting to do it, So that's what keeps me saying.
I feel they talk work-life balance. I think everything's a priority, because some weeks you can't be work-life balance, and some weeks you can. And so it's really all about priority. But I do feel the burnout comes when you do not have something else you can just completely take your mind and put it somewhere else that actually is fun. And it's sort of what I love about this whole new metaverse gaming. even though as we get older, we're still young at heart, and we're still wanting to enjoy ourselves, you know, from sports to golf to games to all sorts of things. And I'm actually happy that the delivery mechanism, you know, from Wordle, all these things that are coming out that allow everyone to take part of and actually enjoy themselves in a different way, because I think we need it as people. And you know, it's interesting, you know, burnout's real. And I think people have to realize that, you know, that's the balance, right? How do you not get yourself to that point without having to make it some,
those little hobbies. It's like finding those moments that I don't need a lot, but finding that hour, like I'll go play a board game, or, you know what I mean? Or get to have, you know, one-on-one time, we'll FaceTime my sister and talk.
Play reading, clubs, whatever you do. I think it's very important. Yep. So this was amazing. And I'm so happy you came on. Is there anywhere people could find you on whether Instagram or what's your?
Definitely. So my company is AA Labs. The double is spelled out. So American Airlines beat me to that AA.
There you go.
But and then I'm on Twitter. It's Amber Allen _AA on Twitter and Instagram.
Terrific. Well, you know, what you're doing is incredible. And I'm so happy to see someone applying it to business, because, you know, as a business person, it gets very, like you said, fearful to not understand at least how to learn enough about this to apply it, right? So that you may not do it, but at least you have enough information to know, oh my God, I actually can use that in a different way. I'm a big proponent of looking at things in a different way, so you don't get stale.
You know, John, that's interesting too on that part right there. I'm always saying, why are we treating B2B as if the business person isn't the consumer? We make B2C so fun and interactive, engaging. I mean, we are the consumer. The consumer is the person in the business. We did grow up with choose your own adventure books and interactions and gamification. The B2B needs to be just as fun.
And listen, with everything going on with what happened with COVID and Zoom, you know, we need to find a way that actually caters to the people coming back to the office in a different way, where they can communicate differently. Because the hybrid model will be whatever I think it will be in the next 18 months. I don't think anyone truly really understands what it's going to be, but all these new tools are going to be what gets us there in a much more, I would say, fun, but also efficient way and a likable way. How's that? Where you actually, you know,
we'll actually remember it.
Yeah. But so thank you. And I know the audience is going to love this, and we appreciate it.
You bet, man. All right. Thank you.